Good morning again, and to those of you online, good morning from wherever you are in front of your computer or phone. Welcome to ABC, whether you're virtual or in person. Appreciate you guys being here today. Again, please feel free to eat more breakfast. We might have a few more join us a little bit late, and we'll start a slow clap for them whenever they get here. But we've got technically four great speakers today. I think they're going to share a lot of information with you. We are recording this, so if you guys wouldn't mind turning off your cell phones or turning them on silent, and try to keep the talking to a minimum so our folks online can hear, that's including myself. So, but I'm gonna actually go ahead and kick it off with Alan Rogers with BXS Insurance, who actually is sponsoring today's breakfast. So he's the reason you get a nice hot meal this morning. But I'm gonna let Alan kind of talk about why we're here today and introduce our wonderful speakers that are going to share all this information with you. I will also be happy to share these PowerPoints with you guys after the fact, so you don't have to, break your pen trying to copy all these notes down. Yeah, I know. But without further ado, Alan, welcome this morning.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate you showing up today. I'd like to thank Megan and the ADC for allowing us to do this and providing facilities. What you said before, I'm Alan Rogers, BXS Insurance. Today is about succession planning for the future. It's not to do today, it's for the future. Most contractors do not understand tomorrow. They're worried about their bid lettings, worried about pay requests, payouts, getting their receivables, and they don't think about anything like putting off. They put off what happens tomorrow. What happens if I don't make it tomorrow? They don't think about that. And I'm the same way. If you think about it personally, you may think about a will. Do I have a will? Well, do you? Do you not? Do I have a trust? Do I have something that's solid that I can put together that's not for me personally, but for my benefactors, for my wife, my granddaughter, my son, my daughter-in-law, my family? And that's what this is, succession planning. It's not for you, much less as it is for someone else. For instance, I had a client a few months ago, actually passed away suddenly, left his wife with the business. The project was over $3 million. It was behind schedule. People were not, how am I getting paid? What's going on? And here she is, lights, camera, action. There was no plan in place for her to take over. There was no plan in place for anybody to pay bills, pay payroll. So that passed away on a Wednesday. Payroll was Friday. What happens? These succession plannings are for you to think of what happens if something happens to me. Do I have a child that's coming up in the business? How are they taking over? Am I going to sell it to them or am I just going to give it to them? What we're going to do today is very brief. This is not something you plan in 15 minutes. So what we've done today is we put together a group of 3 excellent people who know how to do this. We're going to start off with Richard Newland Associates. He's going to talk about about kind of some of the legal aspects of it. What you think of, how this kind of works. Then we're going to go into Danny Powell. How does it affect your surety bonding? How does it affect the internals of your program? What happens to that? Then we're going to follow up with Scott Taylor, the employee benefits side. How can you set some of this stuff up through insurance? How can you set this up with buy-sell agreements? There are certain steps that you can do, and it's not the only steps, but this is very brief of what we're doing today. This takes succession planning. That's what this is about. How to start planning. And with that said, let's go ahead and get this on the road. I'm going to introduce Richard Newland Associates.
These were easy. You're in. Well, my name's Richard Newland. I'm a CPA and attorney here in Little Rock. We represent construction clients all over the state, in the surrounding states. I've spent 30 years of my life serving contractors. And one of the key components of helping contractors is helping them build their net worths. And when you look at a contractor and you're assessing his net worth, a gigantic portion of a contractor's net worth is tied up in his company. And when you're trying to preserve and build that person's net worth, you've got to make sure that you've got a plan to protect the largest single asset that he's got in the case of an emergency. It could be a death, it could be an injury, it could be a stroke, it could be anything. And so this is an often neglected part of protecting a person's overall net worth. And so it's something that I'm very passionate about. And it's very near and dear to my heart because I've seen, like Alan was talking about, a lot of people who don't have a good plan and they'll have a stroke or something. And then, they'll go and lose a couple $1 million a year, 2 or 3 years while they're trying to recover from their stroke and just destroy their net worth. And so it's very important to me to have a great plan. And so that's been a part of my career. And I'm glad to come here today and share it with you guys. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk to you. One of the things I was hoping to do today is to kind of talk to each one of you guys like you're a client, and we're just going to plan your estate plan. We're going to plan your business succession plan today, right here, right now. So I've got a PowerPoint because I'm trying to also serve the people who are on Zoom so they can have something to see. But I would welcome if you wanted to just talk back and forth and just shoot questions at me, whatnot. And we'll plan your succession plan right here, right now. Okay, if you want to. So let's see. There we go. So why have a plan? What is a business succession plan? What are the options? How do we do this? How do we develop a price? That's something on business owners' minds. Is what is my company worth? What makes a plan successful? More importantly, what makes them unsuccessful? What are some lessons learned? So this is a slide where I think of my clients' net worth. If you think of a pie chart of everything you've got, there's the company there's the value of your business, and there's everything else. And so a normal will, a normal estate plan does not address the succession of the company. Okay, so we got to have a better plan. So, no plan is planning for failure. Okay. Provide for the plan. So this is something that the bonding companies are very interested in, is making sure that we've got some kind of plan for the completion of ongoing projects. It's very important that there be a clear chain of command. Who's signing checks tomorrow? Who has the authority to sign a contract tomorrow, post emergency? If there's a disruption to the business, we could need liquidity, additional liquidity, because money is security. Liquidity is security. How do we get our contractor companies to survive beyond my lifespan? Is ABC Construction just Richard Newland, or is it something that's independent of me and stronger and better and survives? So a good succession plan helps us get to the ladder where a company has some kind of meaning and value beyond the owner's lifespan. So what is a business succession plan? People sometimes refer to these as wills, but I would just tell you that the wills I see don't adequately address the succession of the company. They don't leave enough instructions. It just says, everything goes to my kids. Well, that's not helpful. That's not, you need more information. All right. It spells out, if I have a stroke, who's in charge? How does the ownership transfer? What are the funding? What are the specific instructions? Like who takes command of all the different areas? Let's say I'm the owner. Who takes commands of all the different areas that I control? Okay. And an owner oftentimes is doing a whole bunch of significant roles in the company. So we need lots of specific instructions. Oftentimes, the men or the executives who are going to take over the company, they need oversight until your family is bought out. So how is that oversight done? If the original plan fails, what's plan B? Okay, a great succession plan is going to have a backup. What are the 4 options for succession? So all of us, when we come to the end of our companies, we all have liquidation in our back pocket. Okay. And liquidation is where we just collect all the assets, we wind up all the jobs, we pay off all the debts, and then we get that money. That's liquidation. That's the lowest value of what we can do of our different options as to how we wrap up a company. Liquidation has a wind down cost because you got to run your overhead while you're winding down all your jobs. Okay. And once you start, as you all know, through COVID, Once you start running too low a volume, you start losing money because the gross profit off of the jobs is not enough to cover overhead. Yet we've got to continue overhead all the way through the completion of the last job. So you lose a crap ton of money while you're trying to wind down. So liquidation. We're going to sell off the equipment. We lose 10% of the value to the auctioneers. We also squander the value of an assembled workforce, of a phone number that just rings and we get jobs. If we're a sub, the GCs know to solicit bids from us. We're squandering all that value in a liquidation, okay? But you can look at your balance sheet and you look at retained earnings, and that's roughly, assuming some wind down costs and stuff, but that's roughly liquidation value. So that number we've got in our hip pocket, right? We can get that pretty much no matter what, and that is completely within our control. Another method is key man transition. That is where we select a single individual or a group of individuals, and we groom those people to become owners. And we might, while we're still active in the company, we might dispense a little bit of ownership to help them get the feel, start showing up to CPA meetings, start paying taxes, right? That's a shocker when somebody first becomes an owner. As Grant, we made $100,000. Where is it? Well, okay, all right. So it's a shocker for owners to find out that they didn't wear it. Okay. So easing them into ownership, but also teaching them how to lead, grooming them, right? And then eventually, if we're successful with our mentor protege relationship there, we can develop a strong leader for the company that can provide us with a great retirement. Okay. And so this is completely within our control. Key man transition. Third party sale, not in our control. It happens a lot, especially right now. There's a whole lot of third party sales going on. But that's not a plan. I mean, just in my will. Richard, you're my CPA, go sell my company. I can't, I mean, if I'm having to find a third party buyer, if that's the freaking plan, it's gonna be a fire sale. Because the third party there is gonna know they got you. And they ain't gonna pay, nobody parts with checks easily. So third party sales happen, but we cannot control that or plan it. Okay, and then you got ESOP. We'll discuss that lightly. It's too big of a topic to really dive into today, but roughly there's some tremendous tax savings potential there, but there's also a high admin cost, and it lacks some of the key components. An ESOP lacks some of the key components to what I think makes a successful contractor, and that is the person who's signing the indemnity. Okay, I believe that's an important factor of what makes a successful contractor. That guy who's got his name on the line, who lays awake at night, worried about payroll, worried about completing jobs, all that, that's not present in an ESOP. So it's a good option for what I think are bigger companies, but for small, closely held businesses, I don't really favor ESOPs, and that's why I don't think you see very many. Closing down the company, selling the assets, that's it. Predictable results, we know what that number is. We can see it right there on our balance sheet, as long as the wind down costs don't get out of control. There's really not a lot of risk to it. We can control it. Liquidation. Lowest value. No realization of the assembled workforce. Key man transition. This is probably 95% of the succession plans that I've got. Key man transitions there. You just groom them. You can control this. And I typically tell my clients, once we're 55, okay, we need to see our replacement walk in the halls. And if we don't, we go out and recruit them. We'll dig into ULR's construction management program, get us 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, they're all dead weight to us at first, but eventually somebody's going to emerge as being a successful candidate as my successor, and is going to provide me and my family security, because if something happens to me, this man can step up and run the job, run the company, okay, and then provide me a long-term buyout, okay, versus that liquidation, okay. All key man transitions involve a owner finance component. Okay, we get the guy out of construction, let's say we don't have a successor in the organization, so we're gonna grab a guy out of ULR construction school. And again, we can't put all our eggs in one basket, so we gotta grab three. Okay, we're gonna be paying through the nose to get them. And they're dead weight, they don't even, barely even know how to read plans. But we can spend 5 or 10 years, if I start at 55, I got 10 years. Okay, so I can get one of these guys up and ready to roll. Well, he ain't gonna have any money to be able to buy me out, but I can do an owner finance note to him, and if he's successful, he can use my company to buy me out. And what that's doing for me is I now get like a pension. Let's just say he buys me out for $1 million. So he pays me over 10 years, $100,000 a year. Okay, so now I've got a 10-year pension at the end of my career that I otherwise wouldn't have. I would just have that liquidation value is all I got at the end. Okay, so there's work involved in this, but there's a payoff too. Requires the selling owner to stay involved. That is a key to success. We can't sell it to the young person and then just head to the golf course and forget about it. We have to stay involved, keep supervising them, keep mentoring them, prevent them from making the crazy mistakes like catching iron fever, where they want to just buy a bunch of, start spending money because they've never had access to that type of buying power. So we got to put some checks and balances on them. That's part of a good plan. And supervise them, but it's not like we have to be there day to day, running the jobs, dealing with problems. They're going to be able to do that. We just have to supervise them to stop them from buying everybody an Escalade or, just selling all the equipment and buying all brand new stuff or whatever. Some of the mistakes the rookies make. So this key man transition is the highest value of all the methods. We take the most risks because remember the guy's bringing nothing to the table. So it's all on the company. The company has to be successful to buy me out. Lower taxes because we control the structure. We're going to sell stock in this circumstance. Stock today is 25% tax, okay, county and state. Okay, if a third party's buying us, he's going to want to buy the equipment. I'll talk about that later. There's a huge tax incentive to third party sales. So taxes jump up to 45% in a third party sale. So we got to have a huge, way bigger number at third party sale than we do with this. Okay, to get the same net after tax number. So key man transition gets us the highest number. Rewards key personnel. It provides opportunity for the company to continue and is a tremendous recruiting technique. Okay, we can't, none of us can hire. Mickey and I were just talking about this earlier, that nobody wants to work, right? Because everybody's sitting at home drawing money from the government. Well, how do we compete against the big boys? We can do it because we got stock, we got ownership. The big boys ain't gonna offer that. So this is an opportunity to go out and grab a really excellent, executive for our team. And what kind of a contribution, if I had, business owners I consider to be 1%ers, and that's not even true because they're 0.0001%ers. They're the ones who make everything happen. And if you get 2 of those ass kickers in an organization, man, those organizations fly. Okay, so we can do something right here with our stock and ownership and offering things, and it can make that company boom. And then you build a really strong structure that you can step away from. Okay, and key man transition. Most risk, difficult to identify people with the capability to run the company. Pays the seller with his own money. I have a lot of contractors be like, wait a minute. See, Richard, you're telling me I'm going to get $1 million, but he's using the company to pay me. So if I just kept owning the company, I get that money anyway, right? Correct. So you're getting paid with your own money. But what it's allowing you to do is to step away. Okay. Requires the seller to continue to be involved in the monitor. A lot of people think, okay, third party sale, I can head to the golf course or head to the golf. Wrong. Third party sales are always going to have a buyout component, an earn out component. So they're going to make you hang around and earn them the money that they're buying you out with. Okay, that's third party sales. So a keen observer is gonna say, wait a minute, so I'm getting paid with my own money in a third party sale too. Correct. Third party sale? Most commonly thought of way to exit your company. Somebody outside the company buys it, usually via an asset purchase. The reason, this is why there's so many third party sales going on right now is, we all know that you can depreciate equipment when you buy it up front, right? That's the bonus depreciation thing. And so I go out and buy a $300,000 excavator and I save $100,000 on taxes right away. And I haven't even made my first payment to CAT. So I'm generating $100,000 in cash right now, but I'm also depreciating that machine up front. So I don't have any more depreciation year 2, year 3, year 4. So now my taxes start going through the roof. That's the reason you make $100,000 and you don't have anything to show for it. Okay. So what people are doing now is they're saying, well, you know what? We don't have any deductions. We got all this money. We have great earnings. We got a bunch of government money. So we're flush with cash. Let's go out and buy another company for $3 million. And I save $1 million in tax when I buy it, because my $3 million that I'm going to pay for this other company, I'm going to allocate all of that to the equipment of that company that I'm buying. And now I get a $3 million deduction. So the tax code has provided a strong stimulus for third party buyouts. So they're happening a lot right now. But the owner finance portion, there is an owner finance portion to it, often called an earnout. So I'm going to pay you $5 million for your company. Here's $2 million, which is that liquidation value. So the buyer, the third party buyer, is taking no risk. If they buy it and the company goes to hell, they can liquidate your equipment and get their $2 million back. The other $3 million, they're going to structure into an earnout, and they're going to make you earn that money for them to pay. Lower risk, because there is upfront cash. They're going to give you the liquidation value plus a little more. Usually third party buyers will take a little bit of risk. Quicker exit, they're going to have a 3 to 5 year work requirement for the exiting owner. Okay, because if the owner leaves too fast, his employees could fall apart. The whole thing could fall apart. So third party buyers are too smart. They're not going to let you just enter the Gulf. They got to have a good plan. Lower value, typically in third party, because you're dealing with a keen person who writes the checks. They've got a lot of power. You don't have as much power in the circumstance. Earnouts may or may not be realized. ESOP, basically when I sell to an ESOP, the employees form like a 401k, and all of them are participants in the 401k essentially. Like, we all know it's called the ESOP, but you can think of it as 401k. The 401k buys the company from the exiting owner. So in this one, again, the company has to continue making money to give the ESOP the money to be able to make its debt payments to pay off a loan that the ESOP got to buy you out. Okay. So in every situation, with the exception of liquidation, third party buyout, key man transition, ESOP, the company has to continue being successful for you to get bought out. So in every circumstance, even ESOP, I'm getting bought out with my own money. Correct. So that's why you don't see people doing any of these things in their 50s, because it's like, well, hell, I'll just own my company for 5 more years. And I get all the earnings of the company and I can still sell it. So these things are only used at that 65 or whenever somebody's truly ready to step away. And the company is always buying out the owner with his own money, even in an ESOP. Okay, so I'm going to not dive into ESOP. So we're going to skip this just to save time today. How to determine a price? Book value, liquidation value, that retained earnings number, if equipment is fairly valued. That's critical. So you have to have a CPA who is properly depreciating your equipment. So if equipment is fairly valued on the balance sheet, your retained earnings number is roughly your liquidation number. That's the floor. We never go below that number. So then what is the company worth beyond its liquidation value? And that's the goodwill. Something that's above liquidation value is goodwill. That's a civil workforce, existing customers, the systems, those are really valuable. Reputation, that's where we value goodwill. So liquidation, we talked about that. Taxes are high on the liquidation. I forgot to mention that. Taxes are brutal on liquidations. Key transition, taxes are minimized, highest value, more work. We have to grow sometimes as a leader because sometimes what we've been doing for 20 or 30 years is just when we roll up on a job site, we just fix everything and leave and, we just hammer down. To be successful at key transition, we have to step back and groom someone else to be able to roll up on a job site and see what's wrong. So now instead of spending 30 minutes fixing everything, I got to step back and spend 3 hours teaching someone else how to recognize what's wrong, how to correct the job site. So we have to grow sometimes as a leader to be able to successfully execute keeping transition. Third party sale, ESOP, which method is best? Liquidation is always your fail safe. That's always in your back pocket. It is squandering a lot of value, but some of my clients say, Richard, I'm so sick of these millennials. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just not going to do it. Key man transition, obviously, that can be planned. There's really good attributes to key man transition. And during the process, your company gets stronger. When the company is dependent upon you as an owner for all things, that company is weak. Because there's one person holding it together, one rope that you're dangling by. Where if you invest into developing your successors, then we can get there's just more backup. You're more secure, your family's more secure. Your workload should drop eventually. It rises at first because now you're trying to teach somebody, but your workload will drop over time. And it could potentially expand your career because you're like, hey, I don't mind this so much anymore. I'm going to go ahead and continue a little while longer. ESOP, right? In some situations, third-party sales, get lucky. So what makes a plan successful? Minimizing the wind down costs. Maybe in a liquidation, if that's going to be our plan, maybe we sell all the jobs to some other contractor and let him buy them from us, and then we can minimize the length of our wind down. Key man transition. Picking the right person, investing the time, getting on that plan early is what makes a key man transition successful. And having a good successor built and ready to go. That's what makes these things successful. Give them a good plan where they understand the mission. This is done in the revocable trust that Alan mentioned earlier. All your instructions to that person. Okay, giving some good oversight. Putting some things on your successor to where he doesn't like the oversight. And I'll give you a specific example on that. Where one of my clients, the owner exited suddenly. He had a group of people buy and they answer to a board. We set up a board for them like a big company would do. And the group of owners have to answer to this board. And they got restrictions. They can't give themselves big raises, big bonuses, big distributions, buy themselves an Escalade, buy themselves a fast boat until they get his family paid off. And so they're sitting there working their tail off and they don't like it. They don't like having to answer to the board. But that incentivizes them to get the family paid off faster. And so that's all they can think about is getting that family paid off so they don't have to answer to the board anymore. Successful plan. And hopefully by the time, because it'll take years, hopefully by the time that they've got the family paid off and they're free from the restrictions, they're now mature and disciplined enough to sit on the cash, to let liquidity build. Because a lot of people, if they've ever had liquidity, they have too many ideas on how to spend it. And as we know, contractors need tons and tons of liquidity. Liquidity is safety. Liquidity is power. Liquidity enables you to seize opportunities. Okay, and it takes discipline to have liquidity. So hopefully by the time the junior executives have bought the family out, they've now learned that discipline because it's so hard to produce liquidity. Make 100,000, you got nothing to show for it. It's so hard to build liquidity. So, I've got this. This is a good one. How to make third-party sales really successful is we get 2 people. If we get 2 buyers out there, this can be pretty lucrative. A lot of the third parties combat that by saying we want an exclusivity. that you won't negotiate with anybody else. You give up a lot of bargaining power when you sign that. But the big buyers know to get that in place because they don't want to get caught in a bidding war. ESOPs, we're going to kind of skip. So every owner's estate plan, that will, if it doesn't address the company, you don't have anything. Okay, because you're missing the biggest asset, and we've got to have a really good plan to preserve and secure that asset for the future. You're welcome to call me. I'll be happy. And as a matter of fact, you're welcome to ask me right now. If you have any questions or whatever you want to do.
Hey, Jim, Richard, I know you don't want to dive too much on ESOPs, but what's your thoughts on partial ESOPs and like slowly migrating to 100% or whatever?
So, I would, so you can do a partial ESOP, right? You can have 75% of the company go to an ESOP and 25% of the company be in the hands of the key executive who's going to sign the indemnity, who's going to sign the loans, guarantee the loans, who's going to lay awake at night and worry about how to make payroll, how to get that job done. I think that, again, I think that's a critical component of what makes a contractor successful, is that person. And it could be a couple of guys, but there's not very many people in an organization that make that thing really go. And so I would say the analysis is the same. I'm muting it by doing 75% to the ESOP and 25 for him, or flip it, 75 to him, 25 to the ESOP. My thinking though is just give him 100%. You know, I think that what is most valuable to the contractor, the owner, and his family is for the future entity to be successful. And when I start bleeding some of that incentive off to the employees, to the whole employees, I think I'm muting the motivation for that guy to stay up and work Saturday night, you know. And in construction, I think of the employee base where I don't think that they really appreciate remuneration that they can't get their hands on. If I'm going to send, let's say I'm going to send 25% of the profits off to the ESOP, okay? So let's say the company makes 100,000, so 25,000 went off to the ESOP. I think that client is better served by taking that 25,000 and giving it to the employees right now, straight up, and put it on their W-2, than have it off in this amorphous thing that they can't get their hands on until they're 65. So I think that anytime I take compensation and run it through something besides giving it to the employee, they discount the value of it. And so I think we create that structure in a contractor that's costly, because having an ESOP structure requires, you know, annual appraisals and all kinds of administration. Because now you got 100 owners or 50 owners or 20 owners, and so you got to take care of all that. But anytime I take any of the money and run it through something where they can't put their hands on it, they don't like it as well as giving it straight up to them. And I think that might be specific to the construction industry. To say, you know, could I do this in my CPA firm? Could my CPAs understand and appreciate the value of that ESOP and seeing their retirement building and all that? Could they understand it? You know, yes. But if I straight up gave them the choice, would you rather have this 25,000 going to the ESOP, or would you rather have 25,000 getting in your hands right now, albeit the 25,000 turns into 15 when I try to hand it to you? I think they're all going to choose, give me the money now. I'll go invest it. I don't need you telling me how to invest my money. So that's my philosophy. And that's why, again, I think you don't see a lot of ESOPs coming out of my firm, but there are some tremendous tax advantages. And I think it needs to be considered when someone is looking at his succession. And I think the big companies, ESOPs are really attractive because now I don't need an indemnity signer. I don't have a guarantor because the company's so big. It is a true president who's answering to a board of directors. And the president is no longer a big owner. Under any circumstance, he's not going to be a big owner. So now he's not motivated by distributions at the end of the year. He's motivated by hitting his revenue targets, his profit targets, you know, and it's the big company structure. So I think that ESOPs are very attractive for the right client, but most Arkansas contractors who are owner dominated, I don't feel like it's a fit. My
On the, key person or what,
Key man transition.
key man transition, there was an item on the list about requiring the buyer's spouses to sign.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you saw that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Does, in your past experience, has that created some issues with some, people and is it more of a lack of understanding on the spouse? Or is it they're just afraid or could you answer some of
You bet.
those?
That's a brilliant question. So it goes into the psychology of making these plans successful. Okay, so remember, from our perspective, we're the sellers. We're giving them the damn money to buy us out. They're getting the company for free. That's a reality. But I can't let the buyers think that, because nobody appreciates anything that they're given. They have to feel like they've earned it. Okay, so I need the and I need that young man standing up saying, nobody gave me nothing. I built this. He needs to have that pride of ownership. Okay, so I've got to mask it and make it look like he's really buying you out. But we know the reality is I'm giving you the money to buy me out. It's free to you. Okay. Now his contribution is he's got to keep the company going. And he's got to keep it going, while I'm maybe in the grave, but maybe at the beach, whatever. So I mean, he does earn some part of it, but for the most part, we're giving him the money. But we need to make him feel like he earned it. So the more I can do stuff like this to where he feels like this is serious. Okay, so putting up his house as collateral for the loan, I think is a key attribute to making the plan be successful. Because at 5 o'clock, and so when you put up the house, now his spouse has to sign, right? Can't put up the house without her signing. So what happens then is 5 o'clock on Friday, instead of her calling up saying, hey, you need to come take care of these kids, where are you? If she signed on a multi-million-dollar note, it's like, oh yeah, you need to keep working. Don't come home yet, because now both of them are aligned versus creating a division where she's just like, he works all the time, he's a jerk. Now I put them both on the same plane, and it may look like I'm doing something negative to the buyer, but I'm helping him. I'm helping that young man get his family aligned towards this goal. So there's some of the subtleties of making a key man transition successful. You need him and his spouse on the same page. So making her sign some stuff is very helpful to him. He will not see it, and I don't really want him to see what we're really doing. I need him to feel like he's buying it and that he owns it and he earned it. And then he has that confidence when he finally gets you paid off. This is mine. Yes.
Okay, with the key man transition, when does the surety company come into play? And at what percentage of ownership will the surety company require them to be involved, having their names on the line as opposed to the primary stockholder?
Well, Danny, right here.
Great segue.
I just fell asleep. Tell me the question again.
Sorry, man, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I thought you were listening, and.
I was talking to Mickey.
Oh, okay.
In the key man transition plan, at what point does the surety company get involved and say, okay, key man, you're gonna have to put your name on the line to get, bond it?
Typically it goes with ownership. We don't typically have anyone signing an indemnity agreement that doesn't have some ownership.
No, but if you're giving or selling some stock.
Yeah.
In your business, and these 2 or 3 people
Right.
are your key man transition team. And okay, so if they own or are purchasing any stock whatsoever, you as a surety company are going to want
their names?
Not necessarily, but, is this the handoff?
I get
Not necessarily, but I do know, we do have clients who the contractor wants the other owners to have some skin in the game, and they want them to sign the indemnity agreement. We're in, but there's no real hard and fast rule with us with regards to it. But obviously, from our standpoint, if you got ownership, we'd love to have you on the indemnity agreement.
Okay, and
Mike, maybe to answer your question a little bit more simple, it depends on the surety company itself, but sometimes the rule of thumb is anything under 10% ownership they may allow them not to have ownership on a signed indemnity, but it is by the surety company's agreement. It's not necessarily across the board.
okay, so it's a case by case.
It's a case by case, depending on what size it is, how much ownership. I mean, 10% of a large company is a lot more than 10% of a little bitty company. So it just kind of depends, also depends on what else is involved in the company itself, how many other divisions it has, what all's involved in it, how much responsibility does that percentage, that small contract, that small owner have? It's got a lot to do with it, okay? So it's something you have to take up with that surety underwriter himself.
Okay, is there any, what is the policy when a contractor has met the requirements of the surety company and that owner does not have to personally indemnify the company any longer? And you added a couple of brand new stockholders, how does that come in place? Because the surety company is going to know that primary stockholder is wanting to slow up.
Right.
So is that up to the individual surety?
It is, that depends on how much, again, it depends on the net worth of the company, how much responsibility, how long are you still in the corporation? Are you still willing to indemnify for a certain period? If you are wanting to get completely out, you would have to discuss with your surety company at what point you will still be on the indemnity for anything prior to the date that you're off of it. But anything after a certain date, it depends on how you go. If your stock is rolling, if you have 10% today, 9% next year, 8%, there may be a certain portion there that they may say, okay, you're at 5%, we'll just release you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, and Mike, I mean, we won't write a case without corporate indemnity. You have to, the company has to indemnify.
Yeah, no, we're talking
Right. Personal indemnity is people can always request, there's never a requirement anyone personal indemnify. If a client came to me and said, and the key word was requirement. If a client came to me and said, I want off personal indemnity, I can't force them to stay on. I can say, well, that changes the underwriting of your case materially. I can't write bonds for you anymore. So there is if you read the indemnity agreement, folks can request to get off of personal indemnity anytime they want. As Jim likes to say, there's not a lot of black and white in our industry. There's just a whole lot of gray.
Mm-hmm.
And so every case is different. If you bring new ownership on and you've got, to use Richard's term, a crap ton of money in your company, and I was going to get you to, how much is a crap ton? But if you've got a crap ton of money in your company, then maybe those new owners don't need to personally identify. So it's like a lot of things. It depends, and it can be complicated. So, but I think the main thing is that there is no hard, you have to personally identify. Almost everybody does, because it helps the case for bonding. So, okay. All right. And I'm going to go, Scott's got some good information behind me, and Richard hit a lot of stuff that I am so at the risk of repeating. And it did I had a little bit of I was going to tell you a little bit of a Scared Straight story for those of y'all that are old enough to remember Scared Straight, where they took teenagers into prisons and tried to scare them out of it. The only thing I'm going to tell you is, and from a personal standpoint with me, is that if there's anything we can, so this is a little bit like, I was driving down today and I'm going, there's no reason to try to scare these guys because they clearly are interested in this or they wouldn't have showed up for the breakfast. So you're already thinking about it. If there's one thing I can get you to do, it's to stop thinking about it and start acting. Because a 5-minute, and I had this happen to me 10 years ago, a 5-minute meeting with your doctor can change the complete trajectory of how your life is going. And 10 years ago, when I was 48, I got diagnosed with stage 3 metastatic melanoma. I had a tumor in my, and at that moment in time, I was no longer eligible for any more life insurance. And as I looked at my family, I had a 15-year-old, 11-year-old at the time. And as I looked at that, I found that I was life insurance deficient. My family would not, if something happened to me, it was a 50-50 kind of deal. If something happened, my family's standard of living would go down, and they frankly weren't protected. I had thought about it, but I was 48 years old. I was healthy, had a full-time job, full life. We're going to get to that. And 5 minutes, go in to see your doctor, 5 minutes. Life insurance companies laugh at me now. And if I can get you to do anything, it is start to move the ball down the field now. This is the easiest topic in the world to kick the can down the road. So if you walk out of here with anything, go through that. I've got reasons for a succession plan. Richard hit a lot of those. For me, the main one is protect your family. At first and foremost, y'all all love your businesses, but protect your family, protect your wealth. From the bonding company standpoint, we want you to keep your business going for employee, and we're interested in ensuring completion of the work. Contrary to popular belief, the bonding company really is not all that interested in your personal assets. We want the work finished, and you need to have a quality succession plan helps you with that. I would also say that in underwriting, strengthening your position with your bank and your bonding company, a quality succession plan does help us underwrite. And if you come to us with a larger than normal job that maybe the largest job you've ever done is $5 million and you want to do 8, and that job may take you 2 years. If you have no succession plan, we're not as interested in getting on board with you for 2 years on a larger job, because if something did happen to you tomorrow morning, how is that going to work out? So having a good plan and communicating that plan to your surety underwriter can help with regards to also increasing your bonding capacity. So the components, and like I said, Richard hit a lot of these, so I'll just hit a couple. I've got the statement up there. What are you doing to make yourself less important? Mike and I were talking about this a little bit before, because I said, Mike, are you thinking about succession planning? He said, every single day. And but you have got to start this process of working yourself out of your job. And I liked Richard's at 55 years old. That's maybe when you need to start thinking about this, because that gives you 5 to 10 years to go through it. Planning specific to your situation, I have written down, you need to have a realistic assessment of what will happen if you don't have a plan versus what you want to happen. And let me assure you, they will be very, very different outcomes. I had a plan. My plan for retirement when I was 48 was that I was going to keep contributing for 12 to 14 more years. I had a crushing realization that if something happened to me at 48 or 49 years old, my plan kind of went to heck, because I wasn't around to contribute for those 10 to 12 years. So on the spreadsheet, my plan looked great. In reality, I might not be able to enact my plan. So get busy planning specifically what you want to happen. From a surety company standpoint, we like to see contractors have a written work completion agreement, and this does not have to be a legal document. It is simply a document that outlines how work will be finished if you indeed can't supervise the work program. It doesn't have to be terribly specific. It does need to say who can sign checks, who can make decisions, because let's say you're not at work that week, your labor, they're probably sad, but they still want to get paid on Friday. So somebody needs to be able to cut checks, somebody needs to be able to, and how does the function of your company continue to go? I will say this, I have talked to a number of clients who say, don't have anything in writing. Charlie here has been with me for 25 years and he'll take care of everything. Guys, that's not a plan. I've seen that. I've seen that take place, and I'll tell a very, very quick story. If y'all remember, if you're football fans, you remember the John L. Smith year with the Razorbacks. And here, we're going to have John L. Smith come in. He's going to be the head coach. He's going to manage the assistants. It's all going to be great. I'm very, very seldom right about things, but I remember telling somebody that's not going to work because those assistants are going to spend half their day thinking about where they're going next. So Charlie and people behind, yes, they want to help. Yes, they're loyal. Yes, they have great intentions, but at the end of the day, they're humans and they're going to take care of themselves. So if they get an offer a month after they moved into a month after you can't work, they're going to have to take that. So having something in writing for them, having bonuses or incentive plans or things to keep them there. And if you need we have copies of sample work buy-sell agreement or work completion agreements, and we'd be happy to share that with you. Scott's going to talk a lot about buy-sell agreements. The only other thing I'll leave you with are these two, and Richard talked about them as well. You need to be training your replacement now. You need to be cross-training folks. So if, a lot of smaller companies may have a bookkeeper that has been there for 20 or 25 years, knows everything. He or she may be very protective of their job and not want others to really know how to do it. But you've got to fight through that and make sure that you've got enough cross-training in place that if not only you, but if one of your key people can't come in for a month or 6 months, that your company can continue to go on. And then you've got to develop internal systems in your company where your company functions under stress. Everybody's company functions well when everybody's there, everybody's feeling good, and they're rolling along. But can your company function in an environment where one of your key people isn't there? There are, one development of a team of trusted advisors. There are a lot. That's your CPA, an attorney, your surety underwriter, your insurance agent. There are all kind of people who are ready, willing, and able to help you. Use those folks. Don't feel like you have to go through all this. And then there are some specialty products that might fit your business, and you can ask your agent about that. The last thing, and I don't know if you all can read this. This is a slide that Travelers puts out called "Failure Has Many Different." And these are reasons why construction companies fail. And the reason I posted this is because some of these relate directly to succession planning. I understand even the English major understands that these don't add up. They add up to over 100%. There are multiple factors in construction company failure, so it's taking that into account. But 57% of failures are due to one catastrophic project. Could be a poor estimate. It's a problem on a large job. So it goes back to succession. You sign a contract for the largest job that you've ever endeavored to date, and a month later you're unable to work or supervise or do that. There's a good chance that may factor into your. And then 49% or half are an inability to identify internal issues and a lack of communication between the field and the office. So a lot of these relate to your systems that are in place and how they might affect day-to-day operations. The last thing I'll say, this isn't just about business succession. Take me as an example. Do this in your personal life as well. my wife and I even now have a booklet that has it has insurance policies, accounts, all of that stuff. Our kids know where it is. If something happens to us, they are just so much further down the road with regard to knowing what's there. And so, yes, take care of it in your business life, but also take care of it in your personal life. That's my public service announcement. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
Buy sales and then transition, really kind of fun. Now, we sat up here and spoke about what you guys are gonna do. So this is succession planning, you know, from the start of the company all the way down to the maturity of getting out. You know, what do you do? First, you wanna start with buy sell agreement. So you and your partner get in the business. Everybody knows that you know what you're doing, you know how to do it. Your partner does as well. You don't wanna work with your partner's spouse. That's the biggest thing. So how do you do that? You structure that on the front end. So the buy sales stipulate when a partner's trying to get out, that the active partner is the one that buys them out. So you don't want them selling shares to a third party competitor. You don't want them selling shares to their spouse. You want to control that and protect your investment in. So that's what buy sell does. Protects the business, protects the partners, protect your money in there, protect your ultimate growth. And two common types, you have a cross purchase. So typically, if you just have one partner, you guys want to buy life insurance basically on either one. So you own the policy on your partner owns the policy on you. That way you can use that revenue if something happens to your partner to continue the business. If you have more than one partner, so you have 5 people in the business, we do what's called an entity purchase. And so the business itself will buy that life insurance on each one of the partners. That way that death benefit will go to the entity, and then the entity will buy the shares and then distribute them among other partners. So how to fund it? You need a lot of cash. When you start a business, it's just worth that handshake with one another. As you guys grow, you're going to need the cash there. Types of life insurance, depending on where you're at, whole life, term life, variable life, and universal life. Depending on what you want to do and how you want that cash value to build in the policy, you can use these policies and use the money. I'm trying to go quick too, because we only got a little bit of time. So key employee retention and transition. This is key. Key employees are the ones that are main revenue drivers. You do have a lot of things that you can do on compensation, on bonuses. There's other things that are outside of that. So if they want to purchase stock as they're growing up in the company, you can do that on the transition. But what a lot of people don't know is you can do an executive bonus as well. So the executive bonus is where you can discriminate for those key employees. So you're using that cash inside the business to retain that key employee and then transition. So you can use life insurance to really protect your income as you're getting out of the business. And so what a lot of people, employers do is they set these 162 plans up. They're non-qualified plans, so you don't have to worry about the IRS. So the non-qualified plans means you can discriminate for those individuals that you're growing up in the business. That makes sense? So the benefits there, non-taxable death benefit. You can pick your beneficiary. Non-qualified, which is a huge point. That non-qualified plan means if you want to stuff a lot of money in there, you can. You just got to do a non-MEC. So the advantages for the employer, the deductibility of the bonus payments. So, we talked a lot about taxes and how that transitions. There's a lot of tax advantages here. Let's see. And you guys will have copies of this, so I don't want to read my PowerPoint. So, restrictive endorsement benefit arrangement. It's called a REBA. This is how you protect that key employee to stay with the company for a certain period of time. So when you start planning at 55, you have 10 years. You're going to stuff that money inside the life insurance policy for 10 years.
you're gonna put this REPA on the employee to make sure that they can't have that money until that 10-year period is up. You can do this as a business owner or a key employee. And so you use those dollars that you're funding for 10 years to be able to pull out and supplement your retirement. So the non-qualified plan means that you can stuff that money in there as the company's growing. You put this arrangement on the employee to where they can't touch it for, 10, 15 years, depending on what you want to do. So your succession plans, instead of coming up with that lump sum of money right now, you're putting it into a vehicle to grow as you're planning on getting out. Does that make sense? So that's basically a strong overview of what you can do on that. And I went super quick because I know we're slow on time. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
Someone online asked if they could get a copy of the 162 plan info as well.
Yes.
Is that something you could send me? And so yes, okay.
That's okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Standing through this, kind of rushed some of it. As you can tell, it is a broad subject. Many different ways you can go about this, and it's called thinking and planning. That's exactly what this is for. Again, every day this happens. You would be surprised how many contractors were in the Twin Towers when they fell. Believe me, how many contractors have already passed away from COVID, left the companies completely vulnerable. You don't want anybody you don't want your spouse, you don't want your brother, you don't want your partner, you don't want anyone to suffer. Get this stuff done as quickly as possible. Get it ironclad. Can these change? The first one may not be what you end up with 5 years from now. These are ongoing living documents that you can change at your will, at your need, anytime you need to. Something changes for the business, you take off a different direction, you can change this plan. That's what's so good about these. It's called a plan, but it can be changed. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to Megan and she will distribute them to whoever she thinks they can answer them. Or you can give us a call individually. We're available at any time. But I want to thank you for showing up. I appreciate it, and God bless. Have a good day.